everyone. Welcome to the podcast Magic is Real. I'm Shannon. I'm your host. I am a psychic medium and I have a passion for all things metaphysical and spiritual. If you like this podcast, would you do me a favor? It's such an easy favor. All you have to do is like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, share with a friend who you think might enjoy the podcast, and if you wouldn't mind leaving a comment. This is, you could either or, and or. If you wouldn't mind leaving a comment underneath, even if it's just a small emoji. Sorry about the background kind of making me look like giving me a shadow here, but it really helps to help grow the channel, and it's something you can do to support for free. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to those who've already done so, and thank you just for listening and being open-minded either way. Today, I am very happy to have with me Jessica Rachel. So Jessica Rachel is a spiritual medium, an intuitive coach, and host of the Intuition Activation podcast. Her work centers on helping people trust their intuition in practical, everyday decisions. And this is something that is so near and dear to my heart, this topic, because even if you don't want to be a medium per se or a psychic for your work, trusting our intuition is the most important thing we can do as a human in this world. So I'm really excited to talk with you about it. Jessica, thank you so much for taking time out from motherhood, from life, to be here to share your insights with us. Welcome.
Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful intro. And thank you so much, Shannon. It is so nice to be here. And I'm really excited for all the things that we're going to dive into. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I thank you. So I would like to start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came in, how you became, or how you knew you were a medium or psychic medium, and also just tell us about what it is that you do for your clients. So how did you get into this work? How did it all start for you? And then you can kind of go into just explaining how you serve clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a little bit of a long story, but I will say I want to I kind of love to start with this, which is that we're all intuitive and we are all born intuitive. And then it's just a matter of when you realize that, right? Or
Exactly.
when you step into it, when you decide to actively pursue it or strengthen it or pay attention to it. So did I come screaming out of the womb saying, "Hey, this is my purpose. I'm going to be a medium"? No, not at all. But now that I have developed my intuition and I do have a strong relationship with my spirit guides, I can look back on times in my childhood where I did experience a lot of those things, but I didn't know what it was. So I definitely can remember there were a few very distinct instances as a child where I would wake up and see these things sitting on the end of my bed and being terrified. Right? Like, what is this? What are they? Running to my parents' room, and the loving parents that they are who didn't know anything about anything existential or like esoteric, right? They just said, it's probably just a nightmare. Like, it's okay, right? And you chalk
Hmm.
it up to a nightmare and you kind of move on with your life, right? And then it was later in life when I did develop these gifts and I actively pursued them and I really got to, make an acquaintance with my spirit guides. And I kind of went, "Hey, I remember you. You used to sit at the end of my bed." So I was a bit of a full circle moment when that happened for sure. So yeah, but that being said, no, I didn't have all of these sort of like really like exciting intuitive experiences growing up. What really happened for me, and I did actually actively pursue this endeavor of becoming a medium, and I did it for a reason. And the truth is that prior to this, the only thing I ever wanted to do with my life, like you, I love kids, so all I ever wanted to do was be a teacher. And I worked towards it. And I remember going through teachers college being like, this is all I want to do, right? This is like my passion in life. And then you start to get into like the practical part of teachers college. And something started to niggle within me that was like, maybe there's something about this career that just doesn't suit me. Like there's something here that's not right. And as many of us do, we kind of brush it off because, we're told what's right. You have to get a good job. You have to kind of follow hit the certain milestones. And, here in Canada, getting a teaching job is a really coveted job. It's pretty well paid. You get amazing benefits, right? People like, it's hard to get into. It's very competitive. And so the fact that I was getting into these programs and doing these things, like everybody around me was cheering me on, keep going, right? And I remember like even talking to my fiance, then husband now, like, I'm not sure I want to do this. I hadn't even graduated yet. He went, just finish it. Like you've gone so far, like start teaching and then decide, right? So that's what I did. I graduated, I started teaching. And again, those feelings of like, there's something about this job that just doesn't suit me. And it, maybe it's my ADHD. I wasn't good at all of the managing paperwork and marking papers and doing all that stuff. And working with the kids was like maybe 20% of the job. The rest of it was planning and, curriculum and all that kind of stuff that I really don't enjoy. And so that kept niggling at me. And the thing that I like to say about, your spirit guides, those guides who work with you and they're working in the background is they're working for you and with you, whether you're paying attention to them or not. And if you're out of alignment, they are going to create circumstances that are going to push you further and further into your path and into your purpose. And that's exactly what happened to me. And so this looks, and the way I say they do it is like first it's little whispers and little nudges, right? Little pebbles. Then the rocks get bigger, right? And then it's boulders, and then the rug gets pulled out from under you, right? If you really ignore it, right, you end up in these circumstances where you have no choice but to make a shift. And so for me, every year just got a little bit more difficult, right? I would have a difficult colleague whose classroom was next door to mine. Then I would have a really difficult classroom with like all of these behaviors, right? Then I would have a really challenging principal who was breathing down everybody's necks, right? So just getting more and more uncomfortable in the environment I was in and ignoring it because I kept being told, I too, big people pleaser. I wanted to please my family. I wanted to please my parents. Everyone was so proud of me for getting this job, right? And I just kept going. And so one day I was on my way to work and it was a really cold, icy, snowy day. And my car spun out on some black ice and slammed into a frozen snowbank. The whole right car door came off, the front wheel came off, and I got a nice concussion. It was a pretty bad collision. And so I was given 2 weeks off of work to recover from my injury. They were like, you can't be on screens, just take a little break. So I took a break, and I remember being so relieved to just have some time off. And that should have been my first sign. Like, I shouldn't be this relieved to be away from work. I was so relieved. And it was just before the Christmas break. And, I recovered from the concussion. It wasn't a huge one. And I got cleared to go skiing with some friends right before we were going to go back after Christmas break. And I went skiing with my husband and some friends. And I was wearing rental skis and I fell, but my boots never detached from my skis. So I went one way, but my feet went the other. And I just tore my knee apart.
I did
Just
that too
ripped
when
it
I
up.
was, same thing happened to me skiing
Oh,
when I was 10.
it's
My
so
knee
bad.
twist, my foot stayed in the ski. A skier came over, hit, like banged into me as he fell, and my knee stayed in place, but the rest of me moved
Yeah.
and fractured
Oh,
my knee.
I definitely heard a few pops. Like
Yeah.
it was not a fun experience. And this was like the day or two before I was supposed to go back to work, at the beginning of the year. And so HR calls me and they're like, "How's your concussion doing? Are you ready to come back? Do you need any accommodations as you come back on Monday?" And I went, "Well, I'm on crutches now." And they kind of went, whoa, 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 you just recovered from a concussion and now you're on crutches. You're actually a liability to us. We can't have you coming back to the school and walking around the grounds until you're fully recovered and there's no more snow or ice on the ground. So they gave me 5 months off of work, paid leave, which was kind of nice, but they were like, you're not, like, this is not safe. And I was just, oh, again, so relieved. And my husband turned to me and he kind of said, well, you say you don't want to be a teacher. Maybe take this time to figure out what you do want to do. And I was like, okay, that's fair. And so all of this time and the whole time that I was working, I had such high anxiety, right? And my body was rejecting this job too, right? I was getting sick. You could mark it like every 3 weeks on the calendar. Like you could put it there, like Jessica's gonna get sick. And I ignored it, right? I was chalking it up to, I work around kids, you just pick it up. And I had all this anxiety. So I kind of said to myself, well, even if I can't figure out a new career, I have to make it more manageable so that I'm not being this anxious all the time. I have to figure out some solution to this anxiety that I'm experiencing all day, every day. And so that's when I started to attempt meditation. And I knew this woman who she was a teacher. She had since decided not to teach and she decided to homeschool her own kids and she ran a whole like kind of homeschooling group, but I had met her through teachers college and I reached out to her because I knew that she was running these women's meditation circles in her home and I wanted to learn how to meditate. So she invited me to come and join her and I had never meditated before ever, and it was I have to tell you, like the first peace I had ever felt, probably in my whole life. I don't think I realized how badly the anxiety was running in the background until I got a break from it. And it was so beautiful. And then I got hooked. And I was like, as often as she ran these meditation circles, I went to every single one because I just couldn't get enough of that feeling and that sensation. And she was running them once a week, sometimes twice a week. And my husband would carry me up the steps so that I could get into her house. Every week I was there. And these women who attended this circle were very woo-woo, very spiritual individuals, which was so far removed from anything I was ever aware of. And a lot of these women used to be teachers, but they decided to homeschool their kids. They start talking about things like detaching from the matrix. And, they were very, very spiritual. And a lot of the stuff felt really out there to me, but I was drinking it in. Like I was going, there's some truth here. I'm feeling some truth here. And so I kept going, and I finally went up to the leader of the group, this woman who was running these circles, and I told her, like, I've never felt so much peace. I really don't want to be a teacher anymore, but I just need some help. I can't figure out what I'm supposed to do with my life, and this is driving me nuts. I can't figure it out. And she kind of goes, well, you don't have to just meditate here. There are apps for that. And she goes, why don't you try asking your spirit guides? That's what they're for. They're going to tell you what you're here to do. And I kind of went, my what? Like, what's a spirit guide? And so she tries to explain it to me. And then she shows me this app, Insight Timer, and shows me all these meditations that can help me do these meditations to help connect to my guides so that I can get this answer. I was like so grateful, excited. I ran home and I started doing all of these meditations. Some of them were really long. They were like 1 hour, 2 hours to get you into a deep enough state that you could actually connect to your spirit guides. And it took me a few months of practicing, and I literally did it every day. I was trying so hard. And I finally connected to my guides, and I was starting to get little signs, little messages, little symbols, and just little answers. And I remember even seeing like something that now I've learned to be one of my main spirit guides, but I didn't know who she was. She just looked like this grandmother. I was like, well, that's no grandmother of mine. Mine are all alive. Who is this? Right? And I remember the very first time I got a sign, and I was just asking the one same question give me a sign that I'm not supposed to be a teacher. Just give me a sign. And I remember seeing in my mind an image of a lion. And I went, what does that mean? Right? I get out of the meditation, I go Google it. Spiritual meaning of lion, right? No answers there. Like that, it didn't help me. It didn't, nothing happened from it. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I didn't get a message. Who knows? The next day, I go to visit a friend, and her little 4-year-old son, the second I walked in the door, he grabbed me by the hand and went, Jessica, Jessica, I need to show you something. He drags me up to the second floor, and he points to this little lion figurine that's sitting on like a hall table there. And I was like, oh my God, like chills down my whole body. And I look at him and go, why did you want to show me that? And he got all embarrassed. He goes, I don't know. And he ran away. And I went, oh my God, oh my God. Like that was my guides. They were giving me a message. I just starting to get confirmation. So I was finally very on the surface level starting to kind of go along this spiritual awakening journey. And a little bit further down the road, I met a woman who was also at this meditation circle. She would come and do some drumming there, but she claimed to be a reflexologist who helped people with their anxiety. And I was like, I'm in. Let me try doing a session with you. My husband also has a lot of anxiety, so I booked a session for both of us. And we get there and we go to her home, and she has this beautiful massage table. My husband's like, she told my husband to go first, and he goes, Jessica, you're coming in that room with me. I don't know what this is, but I don't want to be alone. I was like, great. So she puts him out on the table, and she's probably doing like energy healing, right? But what she does is I'm sitting there on the floor in the dark and closing my eyes, enjoying the music. And she starts calling in all of these beings of light, Archangel Michael, the purple flame of Saint Germain. And she calls in all of these beings, so at least 5 or 6 of them. And I see them come in the room as she's calling them in. My jaw hits the floor. Because I see them so clearly, and I see them dancing over my husband. I see her using the energy that they're giving out, and she's pouring it onto him. It was the most surreal, magical experience I'd ever had, and I'm just gobsmacked. And so she finishes working on my husband, and I run up to her and I'm like, "When you called in so and so, does he look like this? And when you called in this one, does their aura look like that?" And she goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "You gotta show me how you do this. Like, show me how to do what you do." And of course, she was a medium as well, but she never advertised that. She was much older than me, and it was too woo-woo, and she wanted people to be able to use their health insurance to work with her. So she only ever claimed she was a reflexologist. But really, she was a channel, right? A channeler and intuitive. And so she agreed to help work with me and or to mentor me. And I started going to her home every week, and she would sit with me and she would show me how to ground myself, right? How to call in the guides, how to astral travel, how to protect myself, right? All of the things, how to do mediumship, how to channel, all of the things. And she taught me everything she knew. And then in addition to that, she had me reading all these books. I sought out all these podcasts and just really growing and developing my intuitive gifts. And it was then that everything really started to take off for me. I managed to connect with loved ones from the other side, right? Grandparents, great grandparents that there's no way I could have known these details about them. My parents being like, how did you know that? Right. So, really starting to take momentum and finally connecting with my guides and starting to practice on other people. And when I finally asked that question, right, there was still this one question burning in my mind. If I am not supposed to be a teacher, what the heck am I supposed to do with my life? And my guides are finally like, Jessica, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be helping people who are in the same position as you. They're in a crossroad, they're out of alignment. Help them get back into alignment. Help them find their true path and their true purpose. And I finished off the rest of that school year. I went back in the spring and I quit at the end of the summer and have been doing this full time ever since.
How exciting. Your story is so much like mine, and I'm writing a book about it. So if people are interested, they can read it. But it is that being forced out of what you're doing because you have a greater spiritual purpose. And in my
Yeah.
case, I love being a voice actor, but it was losing my voice right at the pinnacle of my career. And I was on cloud, I was having the best time, and I developed a vocal disorder and I couldn't work for like 5 or 6 years and the pandemic hit. So
Wow.
I was so angry. Why? Why is this happening to me? And it was because, similar to you, it's led me down a spiritual path, discovered that I'm a medium, which we all are.
Yes.
And I think it's very important that you said that you and I are not, I mean, we are special, but we're not more special than anyone else. We might be more sensitive. We might be more called to this work. We might be more open to the idea of it, but ostensibly, any person with an interest can tap into their intuitive abilities, including their connection with the quote unquote unseen world. And so I would love to hear, tell me about sort of the process when you work with a client. How do you tap into, how do you know? How do you know what their blocks are? How do you know what their path may be? What's a session typically like? I know everybody's going to be different, so it's a bit bespoke. But tell me your
Yeah.
process and how it is you tap in and what you help clients with.
Yeah, yeah. And I do want to say that there are two kind of separate things that I do. So I have
Yeah,
clients and then I also have coaching students. So there are people who come to me and they're like, I don't want to learn how to do this. I just want you to do it for me,
yeah,
right? Like, give me the answers. And so those are like my client sessions. And then I do have people who say, like, no, 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 I want, and that's my favorite. I'm like, I want to render myself useless to all of my clients because I want all
yeah,
of you to be able to do this. Because
mhm,
again, as you said, I'm not special. I'm just this elementary school teacher, right? Like,
yeah,
there was nothing special. I just actively pursued it, and it didn't actually take that long. And I really believe that's the truth for you too. So we could definitely get into all of that as well. Like, what are the steps on if you are
yes,
interested in diving into that? But what do I do with a client? And I will say that there is a common theme that the average client will come to me for, which is typically that they found themselves at a crossroads. They're kind of in this place where they're kind of going, I am miserable. I don't know how I painted myself into this corner. I hit all the milestones and I'm here, and this is not the life that, or this is the life I pictured for myself, and I'm just not happy. And I don't know why, right? So that's typically why someone's coming to me. They're kind of going, I want to know what I'm actually here for. What's the thing that's going to light me up? What's my path? What's my purpose? And so every client will come to me and we'll start by doing a guided meditation. This meditation I channel. So it is different for every person, different every time. And it's their guide who comes in right away. As soon as we take those few deep breaths, their guide starts dictating to me what to say, what that meditation needs to be for them. So usually we'll go through some sort of visualization of a place in nature, but it'll be the place in nature that's going to be most calming for them, not for me. So it's different for every person. And we'll do this little meditation. I will call in their guides. Well, I'll ask Archangel Michael for protection just to make sure, right? Keep everybody safe and connected in the best way. And then I connect with your guides and I'll describe your guides to you. And your guides are energy embodied. It's source energy, right? It's that piece of source that's directly assigned to you, right? Our brains, we can't really fathom, like, what does it mean to talk to God? Like, God's talking to me and directing my life? Well, yes, but that feels so scary for some reason. A lot of us can't hold on to that. So it comes through in a form that feels like there's this little thing that sits on my shoulder that talks to me, right? It's source, but either way. So I'll describe what your guide looks to you, and it could look different the next time we channel because as you grow and change, that image will grow and change too, depending on what you need to hear. But I'll describe what your guide looks like for you today. And then what we'll do is I'll give the guides a few minutes to just share anything that they need to know, right? Everybody comes in with a question and an agenda. I always ask them what their questions are before we even start, right? They're like, I need to know about my love life. I want to know about my career. I want to know about this. And sometimes their guides are like, hold on a second. We have some things we've been trying to tell you for weeks and you're not listening. So sometimes we'll just give them the floor, give them 5, 10 minutes to just share, like, this is what's going on in your present moment. You need to support your body in this way, right? You're in a sacred pause right now and you're running yourself into the ground. Maybe there's some adrenal fatigue going on, right? So they'll kind of share a little bit about what's going on in your present moment so that we can optimize how you're feeling in the present moment. So that comes through first. And then typically, if the question is, what's my path and what's my purpose? The spirit guide like to take us on a journey and they show us your most relevant past life. And they'll take us through this whole visualization of a past life that is weighing very heavily on unfinished business that needs to be addressed in this life. And so they'll walk us through this whole scenario. And what typically clients will express afterwards is that they kind of go, a lot of the circumstances that showed up in this past life, although it may have been hundreds of years ago, the circumstances are showing up again in this life. And that's normal, right? That is actually intended to see, like, have you grown and changed? Are you going to do it a little differently this time? And so that comes through, and that will give us a very clear message of what is my overarching path and purpose? Did I achieve something in my past life, but I missed this piece, right? Or did I make a mistake in that last and I'm here to resolve it, right? There are some things that kind of like need to be addressed. And typically it's sort of like I learned some lessons, I did some things, I achieved something in a past life. And this life really becomes about how do I share that gift with others, right? What does that look like for, me serving others in this lifetime? And so then the guides will get really specific. They'll say, okay, here's the overarching umbrella theme of your life. This is what you're here to do in this lifetime. Now, here's the details. Here's exactly how you should do it. And they'll go as specific as you're willing to go. They can tell you things as like minute as here's the name of your business, here's your podcast, here's what your first 3 episodes need to be, here's your next 10 right baby steps, right? They'll tell you everything and they just pour it right into you. And so, yeah, that's typically how we go. And then, of course, if they have any questions about any other areas of their life, we ask their guides and they're going to give it to you in the most objective way, right? They're going to be the ones who are going to tell you what's most in alignment for you. So if they're asking about how do I call in my loved one, right? My spouse or whatever it is, they'll say like, this is where you're stuck, right? And your spouse, they'll never give me a timeline, but they'll say things like your significant other is not going to come in till you kind of overcome this subconscious belief kind of a
Right.
thing, right? So all of those things kind of come through as well, but definitely my favorite sessions are like, what's my mission in this life? And they tell it to you and then they give you all the steps on how to get there.
That's so fantastic.
It's
And
really fun.
I'm going to cough for it.
Yeah, go for
Um,
it.
so yeah, that also that's something that, as you said, you are facilitating this because you've learned how to connect with spirit guides, how to understand their language, how to translate what they're saying. And then you also work with people on learning how to connect with your own guides, trust your own intuition. So you don't need someone like me, which that's kind of our goal, right? Like we love to serve, we love to give one-on-one sessions, but ultimately, I don't want you to have to keep coming back to me because I want you to be able to connect with your loved ones. I want you to be able to trust the signs. And so let's talk about that. Whatever you'd like to share about what are we missing? Why don't we? I mean, we're all gifted with this innate ability. And then over time, I think, in our culture especially, we are sort of indoctrinated out of relying on our intuition. And also we've become so dependent on technology,
Hmm.
rather than let's feel our way to the market. It's okay, we have to use the GPS, and without it, I don't know whether to turn right or left. So, whatever you'd like to
That's true.
share, what are your thoughts on our blocks to intuition? How do we rediscover it?
Yeah. Oh, so much to say about this. And even just to the piece about us being too plugged in, I mean, if you don't provide yourself with enough quiet moments in the day, then the information can't come through because you've got AirPods in or earphones in and like there's something coming at you all day long. How could you even have the space? That's why, people say they get their best ideas in the shower. It's like the one
Yeah.
place they're not plugged into something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And even then get my husband for playing music when he's in the shower. I'm
Oh,
like,
I do
don't
it
do
too. I listen to podcasts while
that.
I'm in the
Yeah.
shower.
Right? I'm like, give yourself more and more moments of downtime, time for where your body is on autopilot and your mind can wander, because that's when the intuitive downloads are going to come through. And that's just on the surface level. Forget about like actually intentionally channeling and calling in your guides. Let's just create some space so that my intuition can have a little bit more say in my day to day, right? And so definitely that's number one, right? Let's start with just creating some more pockets in our day that that information can come through. And I always tell myself, I find doing the dishes so boring, right? I hate doing it. If I can canoodle my husband into doing it as often as possible, I will. And I used to try to make it more, enjoyable by listening to something while I was doing the dishes. And now I made it a rule not to because, you're not really, you don't have to, it's not a brain, like mindful work, right? You don't have to focus so hard to wash the dishes. And if I do it in silence, all of my best ideas come through when I'm doing that, right? So that's number one. Is like, let's create some pockets in the day where we have silence. Go for a ride when you're driving in the car and commuting to work, like shut off the radio for a second, right? Let them come in. They're always communing with you. And I think that that's why, previous generations were so much more connected than we are, right? Because they didn't have that noise all the time. Now, let's talk about actually like connecting intentionally, right? Like, hey, okay, that's great and nice, like it can come, but I want some control over when this information comes in, and how do I do that? And I think that people have some preconceived notions about what they expect mediumship or channeling should look like. It's a little sensationalized on the media, and so they
Absolutely.
right? And so they think they're going to watch like Long Island Medium and it's going to be this big sensational thing where like somebody appears in front of you and I'm going to see something in front of my face the way I see my hand in front of me right now. And it's so much more what you already are experiencing, and starting to recognize that your intuition has been available to you all the time, but having to pay attention to when has it been available, and then starting to take action on some of those things is really important. So a lot of people think that clairvoyance is just what I am predominantly I see, right? I'll see the guides and they play movies in my mind, but that's no different than my experience of my own imagination. I'm not seeing apparitions in front of me as much people like to think. So we have to relinquish that preconceived notion that it's going to sound like something outside of ourselves, right? Hearing your guides is no different than hearing your voice inside your own head. And seeing your guides is no different than what you imagine it to be. However, the only distinction I can give you is the context that you create around it. And if you have done what you need to do to ground yourself, to get out of your head and into your body, and then you have intentionally out loud called your guides in that context, anything that comes through after that is going to be a channeled message. And then it just becomes a process of trusting it and not believing that it was your own thoughts. And so I will say, if I was to give you some steps. Step number one, do something to get out of your head and into your body. Let's move away from the chattery thoughts and to-do list of the day. Is that 5 deep breaths? Is that going for a walk in nature? Is it doing the dishes because my mind can kind of wander, right? What is it that I move away from that chattery, like constant, I like to call it like the news ticker tape on the bottom of the screen that just like never stops, right? How do I get away from it? How do I relax my body? Obviously, I'm going to advocate for meditation. I'm sure many spiritual teachers will, but it doesn't have to be if that doesn't work for you. A lot of claircognizance, I find that doesn't work for them. Their mind just doesn't stop and it can't stop. So then they have to use physical activity as a means of getting themselves grounded enough, right? So go for a run if that helps, right? Some people feel their most peace after they do that and they have that like endorphin high, right? So do something that's going to kind of get you to that space. And you do have to play with what are the ones that are going to work for you and kind of figure out a handful of them. For me, it's usually a few deep breaths and a visualization meditation of some kind. And then from there, you do have to speak out loud, especially when you're a beginner, right? I guess there's something to be said about telepathy and like you can speak and your guides can hear you in your mind. When you're more advanced, we'll get there, okay? Let's start with saying it out loud. Hey, spirit guides, are you here with me? It's enough, right? If you want to be like me, I'll call in a whole string of them, right? I'm calling upon all of my spirit guides and my loved ones and the ascended masters and the angels and the archangels and the light of the divine. You can have a whole spiel like I do, or you can just say, Spirit guides, are you here with me? And that's enough. Call them in, or hey, come and join me. And then there's something I like to add here that I tell all of my students. Then you're going to want to create an insurance policy because we get into our minds and we don't trust ourselves. How do I know they're actually here just because I called them in?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And how do
Yep.
I know anything I'm channeling isn't just my own thoughts? Like, how do I know I didn't make that up?
Yep.
So I then say out loud, ask your guides to send a physical sensation through your body so that you know they're there with you. Okay. And this sensation is going to show up every single time you call them in. So you do it once, you set it, and you forget it, right? Kind of a thing. So for me, that sensation feels almost like tingling or heat in my palms. It feels like somebody's moving my hands back and forth. And as soon as I start to take those 5 deep breaths, my hands are going like this. They already start. My guides are like, oh, she's about to channel. Here they go. Come on in. For some people, it can feel like tingling or pressure in their third eye. Some of my students tell me it feels like someone's tickling their cheeks, right? Some people feel like it's someone like tapping on their chest or like a heart opening sensation. But the point is, you want it to be obvious. You don't want it to be like am I feeling that? Am I not? And I want you to picture like a volume dial on a radio. Like, let's turn that volume up. Right. And so you're going to ask your guides, hey, can you turn up the sensation by 50%, 100%, 150% until it is so undeniable that you are feeling that sensation? Right. And then don't forget to thank your guides. They're beings too. They like to be appreciated. But then you have that sensation. So then anytime you call in your guides and you start asking them a question and you're doubting that answer, am I feeling that sensation? Yes. Okay. It wasn't me. It was my guides in that moment. Yeah. And then the last thing I will say on this, because I could talk about this for hours and hours, is it also can be really helpful to know which is the way that your guides communicate with you most predominantly. If you think that it only has to look like clairvoyance, but you're predominantly claircognizance, you're going to think you can't do it. And so it's really helpful to start to think about what is the way in which I learn best or receive information best. I know for me, I have to see it to understand it. My guides want me to understand what they're saying, so they're obviously going to send the message in a way that I'm going to understand it the best. So they send it to me through visuals. But for somebody else, maybe you need to hear it to understand it. So maybe you're looking for those thoughts inside your head. You're looking for those voices, right? Some people are more touchy-feely. Definitely, if you're an energy healer and you're drawn to that work, you're probably clairsentient, right? And so, or clairtangent. So maybe you need to hold on to that person in order to receive the information about them, right? Maybe you're going to be looking for chills and physical sensations down your body. So you have to pay attention to which is the one that's going to kind of happen for me most. What's the touch point that's going to happen first? Now, I will say, obviously, we want to have a clearer picture. Then we want to work on strengthening all the other ones. For me, just having visuals was not enough. I felt like I was playing charades and I wanted some information of what I was seeing. So yes, then I actively worked to pursue turning up the clair audience so I could hear what they had to say, the claircognizance so they could just talk through me, right? I don't want to have to say the words, you say the words, right? Um, and so we can turn up the volume and all of those. And again, that's as simple as asking your guides to do that for you. Please reactivate and strengthen my hearing gifts, my speaking gifts, my whatever, right? But it helps to know where you're looking in the first place. If you know that you're predominantly clairvoyant, then you know to look for that image, right? And you're not going to think you can't do it. So, yeah, those are some of my tips to get started.
Thank you, Jessica. I am just sitting here holding my tongue so I don't interrupt you because everything you said is so, we work exactly the same way.
Oh, I
Even the
love it.
phrases that I just got chills. Even the phrases you used, as soon as you started talking about mindfulness, I thought of the dishes, right?
We're
Be-
linked today.
yes, I'm getting chills all over my body because
I love
I
it.
recently started doing the exact same thing with the dishes. I hate doing the dishes, and I have chosen to say use it as time to meditate. Use it as time to receive information. Don't listen to anything. Focus on the task without discomfort. Like, just, it's boring, but also maybe it isn't if you're receiving messages.
Yeah.
Also, just the way that you work. I also say ascended masters, God, Jesus, angels, loved ones, archangels, please come in. And what you said about just your whole process, I will second that. that the one thing that surprised me about mediumship when I started studying was that it isn't like the sixth sense for most people. I don't
Hmm.
see your grandmother standing there. I see her in my head. But
Hmm.
more importantly, I just know she's there. I don't see her unless she wants to show me what she looked like for some reason. Unless she wants to
Hmm.
say I had a distinguishing birthmark or something. It's like I just know that your grandma's there.
Hmm.
And yet I'm a very visual person and I have very vivid dreams. So clairvoyance is one of my strongest. But as you develop, often you'll find that I don't need to rely so much on clairvoyance as the feeling or the knowing. And I describe it as like, so the other day someone asked me, "How did you know that?" And I said, it's hard to explain it. It's like I remembered it. It's like
Hmm.
I just like I had brought through some pets for this woman, and a friend of mine was like, "But how did you know?" I'm like, it was almost like it was an old memory of mine. It was like I remembered it. It was like I was seeing something from my that I somebody already told me or that I already experienced. And like you said, it's so subtle. It's not like the movies where you're like, I see everything. It's like you it's so subtle. It's like a memory, it's like a thought. And our job is to distinguish what's spirit versus what's our own thought. How do we do
Hmm.
that? Practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
talk about that? Like the what is the practice? Because it took me years from going from my thinking brain
Mm.
to I was always worried that, oh well, I'm afraid I'm going to like profile someone. Like I know that type of person. Like if they have
Mm.
tattoos, am I going to assume the type of
Right.
person they are? If you're really doing mediumship, you don't have to worry about biases. Because
Hmm.
if somebody, I was always afraid, oh no, what if someone is a certain ethnicity and therefore I go to what I know about that culture? It,
Mm.
and I stopped worrying about it because I know that now whatever comes in, it, it's not coming from me. It's like they will tell me a memory. It's not going to be some cliche thing. And even when it is, the person says that's absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely like that is the hardest piece of this work is
Yeah.
learning to trust yourself. That's the hardest piece.
I tattooed trust on my wrist so I wouldn't forget to do that.
Yeah, there you go. And I think that's the problem is that it's not like people think that the hard part is going to be connecting to their intuition. And I'm like, that's not the hard part. I can
No.
make that happen in one afternoon, right? Like we could do that in 30 minutes. It's are you going to actually trust what's coming through and having the bravery to say what you're actually experiencing in your mind. And the best way, there's two tips I always say to kind of really help you learn to trust yourself. One is try to ask a question that has nothing to do with you. If you are, if because we are so opaque to ourselves, we hold and grip so tightly to the answers that we want for ourselves that we cannot see through it clearly. And I still will go to somebody else to channel for me often. I can do it for myself, of course, but if I want a really clear answer or I'm too in my head, I'm going to go to somebody else to do it. So start by practicing on somebody else. You're going to be so much more objective and receive that information so much clearly because you have zero attachment to the outcome. And so instead of asking a question to your guides about yourself, either ask a question that you have no weight on the answer, like what should I have for dinner tonight? Doesn't bother me either way. What the answer is, you're going to hear it a little bit more clearly instead of asking the big question, like, am I pregnant? Right? Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to hear the answer. Like, you just want the outcome to be a certain thing. Or start asking about somebody else. Should my sister go to that party tonight? Right? You're going to feel it so much more clearly. And then also, when you start channeling for other people, now you have instant confirmation because there's a person sitting in front of you saying, yeah, that's right. Or yeah, that resonates with me. And then you can start to go, okay. when I saw it in my mind that way, or I heard it that way, and then I was brave enough to say it out loud, and then they confirmed it for me. Okay, so that's what it feels like for me to channel. And now I have real life confirmation that that is channeling for me because somebody just confirmed it. So I always say, when you're starting out, that the best thing to do is actually start practicing on other people before you try doing it for yourself because you're going to trust it that much faster and learn what it feels like for yourself to channel for someone else that much faster. So that's my first tip. And then the other thing that I'll say is that if it is for yourself and you're trying to, a lot of us were too timid to start sharing this with other people. Like, what are they going to think of me? Whatever. Okay, so ask your own guides or ask for guidance for yourself, but then actually try taking action on the guidance that comes through. Because if you take action and it positively benefits you, you're going to realize that that was right, right? Or if I chose to ignore it, right, that my guide said, don't go to the party tonight, but I knew that my friend really wanted me to, and they went to mine, so I should, and we let all the other things sway us in the other way, so we go anyways and we sorely regret it. And all these horrible things happen, even though my intuition told me not to, right? I'm going to realize that's what it felt like to get a message that was for me. And then you can start following it that way. Okay, next time I'm going to listen to it and see if it benefits me.
Exactly. And so this is a good question that I have for you. There was a day where I was driving and I'm like, oh, before I go home, I'm going to go get a car wash. And I'm driving towards the car wash and I kept hearing, no, don't do it right now. Just turn around, just turn around. And I was like, no, but I mean, it's like right up there. I'm going to go. I argued with myself. Sure
Yeah.
enough, I get there in the intersection and I'm like, okay, I have to make a right, but then I have to make an immediate left and cross over some lanes to get to the car wash. And I'm like, this is going to be a little tricky. Sure enough, I make a poor judgment call. I get T-boned. This
Oh
poor guy, but
no.
and worse, it was a guy's brand new car.
Oh
And it was
gosh.
like I knew not to go there. But sometimes we don't know the difference between fear and intuition. How do we know the difference?
Yeah. And that one also very hard to distinguish
It totally,
at
it still is
first.
for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and we do war with ourselves. That's why I always say, like, it's so much easier to do my job than it is to channel for myself. I could channel for you guys all day long. For me, it takes a little bit more distinguishing, but I will say this, when it's your intuition, when it's your guides, whatever you want to call it, it's God talking to me, like whatever, it's going to feel much more grounded and centered. Often it will feel like maybe one word or just a very small string of sentences, and then it's like, did I hear that? And then it kind of goes away, right? It'll be calm and centered and grounded. When it's fear, when it's coming from us, sometimes I distinguish it between where in my head I feel it. Like if it's coming from the back of my head, right? Or from my heart space, then I know I'm channeling it or it's being dropped in. Versus if it's my thoughts, it feels like it's at the front of my head. It's very quick. It's very chattery. It's talking to me. It's giving me all of the reasons and all of the excuses. And it's like, right? It's giving me everything, right? Too much at once. Then I know that's my mind, right?
Yeah.
But when it's coming from source, it's very calm and very grounded and very centered. And usually, sometimes it's even just one word or like three words, like don't go there,
Hmm.
right? And we ignore it all the time. But
Yeah.
at least we can start to make that distinction between is it feel calm and grounded and centered? Do my shoulders relax? Do I breathe a little easier when I hear that? Does it feel truthful? And then I'm allowing myself to jump in and come up with all of the reasons why not to listen to it. And that's my mind getting in the way.
Yeah. You're so eloquent. Everything you're saying,
Oh,
I'm like,
you're so
I've had
sweet.
experience with this. I say the same thing to my students. I say the same thing when people ask me the process. Your experience is so similar to mine. And I think that we do have an interesting advantage, which is some people are born seeing spirit, interacting with the spirit world. We actually uh, took a different route where we chose to seek out the information. And because we actually, I'm not saying that they aren't equally amazing mediums. And in fact,
Yeah.
I sometimes pray, like, I want what they can do. I want it to be natural. I don't want to have to effort for this. And I don't.
Hmm.
But we actually, studied it. And so
Yeah.
we've had to do a lot more trial and error.
Hmm.
Maybe
Yeah.
not. I don't want to speak for anyone. But it's in the beginning, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just going to, um, as my teacher said, you're going to feel like you're making it up. How do you
Yeah.
know? Because it's validated. And over time, you can tell how it feels in your body when you're wrong or when it's not wrong, but coming from your head
Yeah.
versus when they said, yes, that was my partner's name, and
Hmm.
it came in a different way. And even still in a reading, I might say, hold on, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm not sure if it's coming from me or spirit. This one's a little hard to decipher, but I'm going to take the risk.
Mm.
It's not always right, but sometimes it's worth risking being wrong because it is there.
Yeah.
Like even when I was talking to you, I keep hearing the name Lucille. My
Mm.
but my mind goes, no, she doesn't have anyone named Lucille, but I'm hearing Lucille in my mind. Now that could be a spirit guide for all we know. But
Could be.
let's speak to that because, or it's someone watching who has a grandmother named Lucille who is coming forward to say hello.
Or
But,
spirit of the child in my womb.
or spirit of the child in your womb, which we've decided is a female.
Right.
And
Who knows? Maybe that was her name in a past life.
yeah, and on that note, um, people often say, I want to know my spirit guides' names. Now, what
Oh,
I
yes.
understand from interviewing all of the people that I've interviewed is that spirit guides don't really inherently have names. They
Yeah.
don't use names on the other side, they're energy.
Yeah.
But they're kind of like, if you want a name, I don't care if you make one up. I don't care if I give one to you. Fine, you want a name? So I once asked my guide, what's your name? I heard Calliope right off the bat. And I'm like, I have no affiliation with that name. It is not a name I've even heard in 20 years. So to me, I'm going to believe, I don't know where that came from. So, okay. And then I
Yeah.
did it again. I got Wendell. Where the heck did I get Wendell from? I don't know anyone named Wendell. So I call them Calliope and Wendell, but, and I know there are more. But to me, I'm like, and I always say, if that's your name, hope you're not
Right.
offended. I like the names, but do we need their names?
Oh my gosh. I get the same response. Every time a client asks me what's the name of my spirit guide, the guides are like, you can call me Bob. Like they just
Yeah,
like
call
don't
me
care.
whatever
They're
you
like,
want.
call me whatever you want to call me because they feel so beyond names. Like we need to have something tangible to grasp onto.
Yeah.
And they can't quite comprehend that. They're like, you can call me whatever the heck you want. Like choose a name, you can have it. However, sometimes, and this happens, every once in a while, sometimes people will ask this question, which is, has my guide ever been with me in a previous lifetime? Because that can happen. It's very rare that you'll have a guide who you've lived with in this lifetime because the point is that they're with you from the time you're born all the way through. But sometimes you'll have had a guide who say, actually, I was your sister in a previous life and you saved my life. I was really connected to you. And when I passed on and ascended, I chose to help you through in all of your lifetimes since then, helping you ascend, right? They're like, when I was your sister, my name was Alice. So you know me as Alice. Right. And
Yeah.
so that'll happen sometimes. But typically, no, they're like, give whatever name. I've asked so many times. I have this guy, she looks like a grandmother. She's no grandmother of mine. All of mine are alive, but she and I'm always like, what's your name? What's your name? And she's like, grandmother. Just call me grandmother. That's what you keep calling me. And I'm like, okay, great. Call in the grandmother, right?
Yeah.
So they don't really, they sometimes laugh at me when I ask for a name. They're like, they're so beyond that sometimes. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things that it's like you need it because you want to make sure you're calling in the same piece of source each time.
Yep.
And so then it's helpful for you, but they don't need it, if that makes sense.
It does. So when I do mediumship, I say, guides who help me in mediumship, please come forward, whether that's loved ones on the other side
Yeah.
who, I have a friend on the other side who was an incredible medium. And I'm like, if you want to help me, if you can, I don't know how that works. And I
Yeah.
call in and I say, archangels, protect us from any negative, lower vibrational spirit that might want to confuse us, that
Yeah.
might want to do us harm. And I just ask that whoever whoever wants that job, whoever feels most equipped to take the job of protector of energy, whoever feels most equipped to support me in trusting the messages that are coming through so that I can give Jessica messages that are in her highest and best good and in the highest and best good of the spirit world. So I don't name it. I just say,
Yeah.
let that be the intention, right?
Yeah. And that's the most important part is setting the intention,
Yeah.
right? If you ask for protection, it is so. And I think
Hmm.
that's also one of the biggest like boundaries or barriers to entry for people who are trying to pursue this work. I think they kind of go, what if I open myself up to this and it's like Pandora's box and right, like the floodgates come through
Yep.
and I can't control it. I'm gonna feel crazy, like walking through the grocery store, getting all of these beings coming at me, right? And I think that that's also, I always tell my students that we do this on day one. You have a choice. You get to create boundaries and barriers with spirit. They want to work with you as much as you want to work with them, but they have no idea what it feels like to be in a physical body. So when you feel like you're being bombarded, they have no idea. Right. And so you have to then ask for protection and create boundaries. This is when you're allowed to connect with me. This is when you're not allowed to connect with me. I used to get so annoyed. People's spirit guides the day before I had a client or the night before, they would wake me up in my
Mm-hmm.
sleep and start telling me all of the things that they needed that person to know. And I would keep a journal beside my bed and like furiously write it all down. I would walk into the session, everything they needed to hear before I even got there, exhausted, by the way, because I hadn't slept so well. And I finally started telling them, like, you can visit me in dreams, but you cannot wake me up. You cannot wake me up. And they stop, right? They just don't know what it feels like to be in a physical body and to need sleep, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, just I always tell people like if that's a fear for you, know that you can ask for protection. And when you ask for it, it is so. And you can create boundaries. You get to create the rules of the game here. If you don't want the information to come through when you're walking out in public, which raise my hand, I don't love when that happens, right? I tell my guides, you only come when I call you in. Otherwise, let me live my life.
Yeah, I actually don't mind when because it doesn't happen enough unless I call them in.
Yeah,
But I know that's not the case for all people. There are people, as I said, that are more natural mediums, meaning they were born wide open or they had a
yeah,
near-death experience and now they can't filter it out.
right.
And I have a girlfriend, Brooke Grove, who I've interviewed, and most if you're into the near-death experience world, you know of Brooke Grove, but recently had lunch with her. I got chills for some reason, but she's a
Ooh.
beautiful person. And yeah, she like sometimes has to wear sunglasses or she chooses not to drive because she's like, I can't be distracted. It's I would be a danger on the road because there's too much coming at me all the time. And she
Mm,
knows energetic boundaries, but because she had a profound near death experience and I think might have left her body several times during that time, she's so open to it that she actually has to be more self-protective. Now for me,
yeah,
I want to be more open. I want it to happen
open.
all the time because I love it when it happens. It doesn't mean I'll walk up to a stranger unless there is an opening there, unless I've asked permission.
Yeah,
But I had lunch with some friends that are clients of mine, but also friends, and they were like, it was really loud in there, and they're like, "How is this for you? Like, are you feeling overwhelmed?" And I said, "No, because my focus is on you right now. I'm
yeah,
tuning out. I'm able to tune that out. They might be trying to get my attention, but I don't feel it. As you said, that sensation. For
yeah,
me, when there's a spirit there, I get a tingle from for some reason, right side of my body. That's just where my brain hemisphere, whatever, receives
yeah.
that energy. So it's the back of my crown, back right side. I get tingles all the way down my scalp that go all the way down my right side, or often it's on my thigh. I don't know
Hmm.
why. That's just where I feel the energy, and I know there is a soul here. There's a spirit here. It usually happens when I've said something true that they want to
Hmm.
validate, or when I start talking
Yes.
about if I'm with you and I'm like, oh, oh yes, I was at your grandmother's funeral. All of a sudden, grandma's there.
Right.
But to me, it's not like the whole time I'm out, there's spirits going, go tell this guy this or go do that. I don't,
No.
I'm just not, as Suzanne Giesman, the medium, says, when she starts a reading, she just says, switch. She just switches her perception.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, I have to say, I think I'm like you, that because we actively had to pursue it, I'm not
Yes,
feeling bombarded all day,
me
every
neither.
day. But I will say that the sleep one was a real thing for me. But
Yeah.
but there was one time where it happened to me where I was getting like someone was really harassing me. And it was I was taking a business class like on how to market myself. And so there were 500 people on this Zoom call. Okay. And then
Wow.
they put us into breakout rooms. So then we got, into like a smaller group and I'm starting to sweat and turn beet red and I'm like hyperventilating. Everyone like looks at me and they're like, Jessica, are you okay over there? Like we're talking about like marketing ourselves on Instagram. Like why am I getting all sweaty? And I'm like, I can't even talk about it. I was just like, Karen, this woman, her name was Karen. I was like, do you mind connecting with me afterwards? And I got on a call with her afterwards and I'm like, I don't know what happened. Did your father just die? Because holy smokes. She was like, yeah, 3 months ago. And I was like, he is like the whole call. He was making my heart palpate, and like he was just really, really adamant. There was something he really needed her to know very urgently. There was something about something happening in the will and something being transferred over to the wrong person, and she needed to correct it. And it was like a very timely thing. And so he was
Yeah.
like, I got to tell her before this becomes final, kind of a thing. And so she was very thankful, and it changed the course of how she inherited from her father,
Ah,
but which is really beautiful. But it was one of those things where like that had never happened, and it's never happened to me since. But there was one time where a soul was just like, I don't even care what your boundaries are. Like, I need this message to get
if it's
across.
important, that will
Yeah.
happen. And I think that's one time I walked into a bike shop. I was a sponsorship coordinator for a music festival, and I'm walking in to this bike shop, and all of a sudden there's a soul there. And I look at the woman, I'm like, at the desk, I'm like, are you spiritual at all? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, this is weird, but I'm a medium. There is a soul with me. She's like, who is it? I'm like, well, I don't know yet because I don't know right away. I have
Yeah.
to ask questions, or I'm like, okay. I said, there's someone, I'm getting the name Johnny. She's like, that he works here. That's him over there. I'm like,
Mhm.
someone lost a child. She's like, he did. And I was like, well, I know that spirit normally doesn't come in unless they know it's okay. I do not want to walk up to this. The guy was like 20, really young. I'm like, I don't know if it's an appropriate place to walk up to him about something so traumatic. And she's like, no, he'll totally receive it well. She's like, I know him
Mm.
and I know he'll be happy to hear from his son. So I just walked over. I said, hey, I don't want to be inappropriate. Are you comfortable? He said, yes. I gave the message. We hugged. It was beautiful. Spirit usually doesn't do that unless they know their person will be receptive to it, at
Of
least in my
course.
experience.
Yes, yes. I don't think that they ever want to, because then what's the outcome if they're not ready for it is that that individual gets scared and shuts it down, and then their
Yes.
access gets cut off, right? So it's counterintuitive for them to bombard someone who's not ready, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I totally agree. But my experience also, I do want to say, like, I was recently corrected on a podcast that I was being interviewed on, and they said, because I actually find that mediumship for me is not actually my strong suit, right? I really, really resonate with, connecting with spirit guides and angels and, all these other beings that kind of come through, and they sit in maybe different realms, maybe different dimensions perhaps. But when I'm actively like working, trying to call in somebody's loved ones, for me, it's a little bit touch and go. It's really like at the will of
Yeah.
the individual who wants to come through. And if they're not into it and they don't want to come through, I almost don't get it.
Oh,
Um,
same. Yeah.
oh, okay. So, because I guess the experience for me is spirit guides are ever present. So you call them in and they're there, and there's no, question again. But sometimes they're like, I would really like to connect to my mom or something. And then it's like their crazy aunt who has a much bigger personality comes through instead. Do you have that experience?
Absolutely. And it's the only thing that troubles me about this work is that I don't have control over it at all. And
Yeah.
so one minute I'm giving three readings in a row where I'm like, not it's spirit doing the work, but I'll be like,
Yeah.
I'm on fire. I should have my own show. Like
Yeah.
just call me Long Island Medium too, or
Right.
like I could totally do this full time and I get all excited about it, and then the next reading I get nothing. Or the
Right.
person has a wall up, or I maybe am not feeling energetic, or the spirit is like this person's not ready, or
Yeah.
whatever the thing is, there are variables. And some readings I'll either have to give a refund because there's nothing, or they'll
Yeah.
be like, that was great, but I'm like, that wasn't one of my best. I didn't feel like that was like,
Yeah.
it's not up to me to judge. I always ask for my ego to be removed. It is not for me to judge. I trust spirit. I am here to be a conduit. It is not about me and my ego. However,
Yeah.
my ego as a human gets involved when I can't connect because I start to think, what did I do wrong? What if this
Yeah.
person thinks I'm a fake? What if this caused more harm than good? So it is. And I have another friend who's a brilliant medium, and
Mm.
she and I recap, and we'll be like, I just couldn't connect. I don't know what it was today. she
Yeah.
said sometimes I'm like, am I even a medium? But it's we have to trust there's always a reason. The person's not ready. A lot of times it's because they're defensive or
Yeah.
they're wanting to hear something very specific and they're like, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Or unintentionally they have a block
Yeah.
where they're too distracted or anything. And then sometimes maybe my energy is just not on the right wavelength today. Or maybe that
Yeah.
spirit and I aren't on the right wavelength together. So the one thing that I don't like is that I can't promise. I don't know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
All I can say is,
Yeah.
spirit, please let them hear what they need to hear today. And I have to trust the process and not, and also accept that sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why I think maybe I geared my work a little bit more towards, beings from a little bit different
Yep.
dimensions or higher dimensions because they're a little bit more omnipresent or ever present. So I know if I do my ritual, they're coming, right? And
Yeah.
there's more of a guarantee there. Whereas I really did feel like with and this and again, I agree, like it's not you, right? It has nothing to do with
Yeah.
you. And of course our ego gets in the way. But I think there's also this feeling of like we don't know where that soul's journey is at right now, right? And
Yes.
sometimes I find like, souls are going through a reflection period. I've had one time where I was trying to connect, somebody was trying to connect with their father, and the father was in such a period of reflection. And all they could offer was how sorry they were, that he wouldn't want to talk about anything else because this father had abused his son quite a bit. And so then he didn't like that's the only message that would come through because that's where he was. And I'm sure that's part of the process once you pass away, that there is a reflection period, right?
Yeah.
And so then trying to channel them and ask them for advice, it's like not going to be so productive at that moment, right? And then sometimes I find like we call them in and they're like unavailable. And it's like,
Yes.
where are you? Right? Are they getting ready to reincarnate? Maybe, right? Are they going through some sort of reflection? Are they, I don't know. I just find that sometimes with souls who are getting ready to reincarnate, who are sitting on sort of that astral plane, is it the causal plane, the astral plane? I always forget the different names, but
Yeah.
wherever the loved ones sit, right? I always feel like they're not as omnipresent, I feel, as the guides who is like literally a piece of source that's connected to you, that's available to you at all times. And so that can be, that became endlessly frustrating for me.
I relate with that. And I also just want to clarify and see, I think you'll agree. Sometimes when I'll say I'm not connecting, someone in a lot of grief, I've had this happen recently, and this is another thing, it can be hard not to take it personally, is she got really upset. But that's,
Mm,
and I brought through so many different relatives that had
yeah,
messages, and she knew that. She was lovely.
yeah,
But her friend who'd referred her was like, now she's sobbing and she's like, what if he's gone? What if he's reincarnated? Or it was something like, what if he's not there anymore? And I'm like, oh God, I did not, that is not what's happening. And I don't want
yeah,
you to take my inability to connect for he's not there. Like,
yeah.
and it's not that. And also if you reincarnate, you're still going to retain the
Yes.
personality, the connection you had. Reincarnating doesn't mean you're a new person and your soul is no longer exists as Jessica.
No,
Jessica's
yeah.
energy imprint and consciousness always remains, but Jessica's higher self splits off into different parts and there's no time on the other side. So
Yeah.
Jessica is not now gone. Jessica is currently living all of her lives parallel at the same time because there actually is no time past, present, future. It is all
Hmm.
happening now. So right
Yeah.
now, you and I are living other lives, parallel
Yep.
lives in different dimensions and different times. So, but that being said, Jessica, like you said, the soul might be in a transition period
Right.
or a reflection period. I don't know. I've not been there, right? But
Or you have, you just don't remember.
I have been there and I don't remember exactly
Yeah.
how it works. I can only say what feels true and what near death experiencers tell me. And even
Yeah.
near death experiencers have only visited and come back. There might be a whole different
Oh, yeah.
level once you stay. So all we know is what we infer from what
Yeah.
spirit tells us, right? What do you think about
Yeah.
that?
No, I first of all, I 100% agree. First of all, there really only is the infinite now, right?
Hmm.
And so when we talk about past lives, they're not actually past lives, and that actually is why we're able to access them because they're all happening at once,
Hmm.
right? And like I know the quantum physics side of all of it, like it's enough to make your head explode,
I
right?
know.
Like and so because we see times in such a linear way here, and it's intended that way, but for us to imagine, but then there's something so beautiful about that because it also means that we can have influence on the other versions of ourselves that are experiencing parallel lives, and we can send love to our future selves, to our future incarnations. We can send love and healing back to our previous selves, and that has an immediate effect on our present because they're all happening at once. And so when you know that concept, it's like, oh, I'm so much more magical than I realized. So I 100% agree. But yeah, I don't know. The only piece that boggles me is like the why a soul would be unavailable at a particular moment, other than maybe they're in transition in the moment, or maybe, as you said, maybe that's not the soul's not ready to hear right now. Maybe there's some other force, some other guides going, if this grieving widow talks to her loved one right now, it may have a negative effect on them and they're healing at this moment. They need some space and time, and maybe that's why it's not coming through. And I wish I got had more answers around why I could call someone in by name and sometimes they'll show up and there they are and here's all the details, and somebody else and it's like crickets, right? Nothing comes. And
Yes.
I wish I had an answer for that and I don't. And maybe that's why I just moved away from it because it became endlessly frustrating. And I also do want to say this, and I don't know if this is helpful for your listeners, and but maybe it's just a personal choice, but what I found with connecting to loved ones is even though they are in a higher place, right? They're a little bit more zoomed out from their life than they were when they were here. They're still holding on to a lot of their biases and their beliefs and their opinions that they had when they were here and present,
Yeah.
because they're a soul that's still journeying, that is going to come back and learn some new lessons and have unfinished business that they need to look at themselves. So, asking them for advice, I found to not necessarily be the advice that was for your highest good, right?
Yes.
It's still like filled with their own biases. And so for me, I felt almost like that could do somebody a disservice, right? It's like asking, I almost have to give the caveat of like, this is what your mom would have
Would
said. This
say. Yep.
doesn't mean that it's what you should do, right? Maybe she's still laying on the guilt, right? Like,
Hmm.
who knows? And so for me, that's also probably why I switched a little bit more to like, but your spirit guide, their job is specifically to get you into your highest alignment and your highest good and what's best for you, regardless of the opinions of your loved ones who have passed away. And so,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. They still retain their personality on the other side. They have more
Yeah.
knowledge. They've had their
Yes.
life review. They almost always understand the nature of their character defects, their wrongs, and they want to tell you, I know now, I understand. Um,
Yeah.
or they just want to say, I am okay. I love you. You are doing great. And that is
Yeah.
something is thank you for bringing that up and exploring that with me because I have had a few people that took that and spiraled with you
Right.
couldn't connect. Does that mean he doesn't exist? And I'm finding out the next day they were up crying all night about it. And I'm like, I do not
Oh
want
no.
anything I said to give you the wrong impression or make you feel that there's no connection there because sometimes it's just a matter of not right now. You're not. I have had spirits tell me, I don't want her to be sort of clinging to me in a way that
Yeah.
prevents her from being present today. I want
Yeah.
her to love, the love is there, the connection, but this is becoming a codependent. I
Mm.
don't want to let go. And so I've had to navigate that with a few people. I do find that it can, codependency with spirit can become very real, which I understand because I could live in the 5D and
Oh
escape
yeah.
into fantasy all day long because it's so peaceful there. But also, we chose this life for a reason. We chose to be
Yeah.
here to experience what's happening now, today. And so we have to find a way to retain that connection with our loved ones
Hmm.
without trying to cling and avoid dealing with what's happening here today.
Yeah. I think you just answered the question as to why the souls maybe don't show up. Right? Like I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
often what's best for you in the present moment, right? If you're clinging to this grief and you're only sitting in that space, then you won't move on necessarily. So
I
I
just
think
had a
maybe that's
reading like
it.
that, and we talked about it afterwards, and she was very distressed, and I was like, "Listen, of course he loves you. Of course he's there. He also wants you to be in today, unlike the things that you're avoiding by living in this sort of, I don't want to say fantasy world though, because it is
Right.
real,
It's real.
but also we have to be careful about spiritually bypassing.
Right. But
I
it's
don't,
not
yeah.
in the 3D, right? Like
Right.
it's not here and now. Right? So it doesn't mean that they can't be present with you, but they also can't be physically here with you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that can be hard, right? And it can be hard to let go for sure. I mean, thankfully, I've never experienced the kind of grief where I've lost someone
Me
particularly close to me
neither.
yet. And, I'm young still, so I'm sure it'll happen. But,
Yeah.
I can imagine that that could take years. And maybe that soul is like, I don't want, as you said, you don't want to create that codependent relationship where they can't then be present and here, because maybe that's what that soul is learning in this reflection period, that hey, I wasn't present. I'm not going to do anything to prevent other people from being present.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jessica, thank you so much for being here. For you have so much wisdom, so much insight. You're so articulate. I love the way you expressed all of this. I can't wait to share this episode.
Oh,
Is there
thank you.
anything you'd like to share about? Well, I have two things. One is I'm going to have your website so people can work with you.
Oh, thank you.
Are there any events coming up that you'd like to promote, or any? Are you writing anything? Or is it just your website and find me here if you'd like to work with me?
Yeah, it's more just find me here if you'd like to work with me. So you
Yeah,
can head over to my website at jessicarachel.co. I do have a special coupon code for your listeners. So
thank you.
if anybody does want to do a session with me, so you want me to channel your guides for you, you can use the code podcast20 and get 20% off a session. And if you don't want me to do it for you, but you're ready to dive in, you want to learn how to do this for yourself and for others, and even just if it's just for yourself, I do private one-on-one intuitive development coaching. And so you can use the code podcast500 and get $500 off of that package with me as well. And then, of course, you can find me on my podcast at The Intuition Activation and um, on Instagram. I am Jessica Rachel.
Awesome. My last question, if there's one thing off the top of your head that you want people to know, what is it?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. I would say that your intuition is always within you. It is like a muscle. You are born with it. The question is, are you going to flex it? Or are you going to strengthen it? And it's not something you need to get to. It's not something outside of yourself. It's something you need to remember, reactivate, and strengthen. And it is 5 minutes. It's just on the other side of a few moments of inner peace. And if you can create that quiet and you can go inward, it will come through because it's that pilot light. It never went away.
Oh, you should be writing, girl. But speaking is great too. Thank you so much, Jessica
Thank
Rachel,
you
for
so
being
much.
here with me on Magic is Real. I look forward to staying in touch and hearing about more of your insights and following your podcast and all of it.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much
My
for having
pleasure
me.
too. Thank you.